Western Digital products. We have seen a bunch of different products come in across the last few years that are coming in primarily with two types of issues, and we'll go over those two issues today. And I'm pretty sure that if you dropped your Western Digital product recently and you're beginning having hard time getting access to your information, this video should cover all aspects of the situation. So let's begin by saying that one of the most popular drives that are on the market right now is Western Digital Passport. They could be Western Digital Passport Ultra, My Passport, Elements, bunch of 2.5-inch drives that are packaged in little plastic boxes. They have a USB cable coming out of them that are 2.5-inch, made by Western Digital. They're exactly the same type of principle of the drive on the inside. One of the proprietary things that Western Digital began to do for their 2.5-inch external drive solutions is to implement this USB 3.0 interface instead of a regular, SATA interface like we're all used to. So, does that make it more difficult to recover data from? Yes and no, because before we hear this thousands of times. If your drive was dropped, first thing that you should try is to take it out of the box, put it in a little USB to SATA adapter, and hook it up to the machine. Yeah, I mean, you may get lucky, you may get access to it, but let's try to understand what the problem really is and why you're beginning to have problems with getting access to your data. So let's say you didn't drop your drive yesterday. You dropped your drive maybe 2 weeks ago, and your drive was still running when you plugged it in. So you think you dodged the bullet. That nothing happened to the drive and the drive is working fine, and that's what a lot of times will happen with Western Digital drives. They have really good heads that can take a beating or two, and they will work for a while after you dropped it. But the thing is that once you drop it, especially if the drive is running, there's a high chance that head contacted the bladder surface. At that point where they contacted each other, now you have a physical bad sector, aka a micro scratch, micro damage on the bladder surface. So the more times your heads are gonna glide over that damaged area, the more contact they're gonna be having between each other. So that's what starts this process of building up contamination on the surface of the head. Now what happens when the contamination is getting built up on the surface of the head? The signal for reading and writing gets worse and worse and worse. What Western Digital done this time, and I mean, I don't know how, I can't really tell you right now how far this way of doing things goes, but they have a module in the firmware. Your drive splits into two zones. There's a service area and there's also a user area. As a user, you only have access to the user area. You do not have access to service area. Service area is only accessible using vendor-specific commands, using utilities like PC3000, for example. They will let you in, they will let you correct information in the service area, edit it, change it, erase it if you'd like. But bottom line is that as a user, you do not have access to service area. You only have access to the user area. So what happens when this drive begins to have this degrading head effect, when the heads are progressively getting worse and worse and their signal gets worse and worse? Hard drive is not intelligent enough to understand that problem may be on the head surface level. It thinks that the problem is on the disk surface level, because the mechanism inside the drive is set up in such a way that it's supposed to be mapping sectors that take longer time to read, and that is done for the purpose of preparing them for getting de-indexed from your drive, because potentially they will turn into bad sectors at some point. So the drive actually thinks that it's helping you by keeping an eye on all of the sectors that take longer to read. But here's the logical thing. If you dropped your drive, this thing, for example, has 6 heads inside, and one of those heads touched the platter slightly and got contaminated. Every single sector that head is going to try to read, once the signal gets weaker, will appear to the drive as it takes longer to read that sector. So what are the drive is going to do? It's going to book it into the relo list. The relo list is what keeps these entries. In my personal experience, if we look at the relo list in the hex view, it's got entries halfway in, not even halfway in, like even third way in, the drive already has a slow response. So 2 main issues that these drives are coming in with are when they're dropped. Number 1, obviously, if your drive is clicking, head replacement is needed in most cases, because there's also things like encryption on these drives and other things that kind of require head replacement. And I'll demonstrate what that head replacement reacts like. So I have an older drive here that I just found in my inventory, and I have a USB cable hooked up here, so I'll connect it. This is the sound that it's making. I have a mic pointed to me, so I don't know if you guys can hear it now, but this is clearly a clicking sound. So I'm gonna just connect this. This drive clicks because heads are not reading, okay? It constantly recalibrates because there's no signal coming from these heads. Now I have another drive here that was also dropped, but it was dropped and slowly the data became inaccessible. The drive was kind of beginning to get really laggy. It would lag a lot, and eventually it just stopped getting recognized. If you dropped your drive and you plug it in, and if it works after that, especially if the drive was running, make sure you make a copy of your important data right away, because that drive may work for a little bit, but then one day it will just lock you out completely, and you'll have nobody but yourself to blame for it, because you had this chance to back up your data, but you didn't. So this drive, we're gonna connect it. So this drive doesn't make any clicking sounds, but it does make some sort of sounds that are not normal. Normally this drive should be just idling. Maybe it will click a couple of times at the beginning, but then it should stay idling, and nothing but spinning sound should be coming from it. Now what I have here is a USB SATA board that is basically an identical board that was designed for 2.5-inch drives that are internal. They're not external drives like these. And the part number that we have on this guy here, in the middle it has 771961. If we look at this guy here, it says 771960. These two boards are fully compatible, okay? And if we perform ROM adaptation, which is this component here at the U12 position, if we remove the U12 chip from our USB board and place it on the U12 position on our SATA board, bolt that SATA board onto this device here, we should be able to communicate with that drive using SATA interface. Okay, the reason why I always do that when I try to work on Western Digital 2.5-inch external drives is because, yes, PC3000, by hooking up a terminal to these pins here, sometimes can give you access to the utility. You can clear the problem in the utility using the original native board. But the thing is, most of the time it doesn't work. You need the SATA drive on there. You need the SATA printed circuit board on there. So let's go ahead and get that done. I'll show you guys what is involved in the process. So we need to perform the recovery on this guy here. Okay, we got the board, we got the original drive. Now let's walk over here. One thing I didn't kind of make clear is that when I plugged in that drive that we're trying to repair right now to the USB port, the problem is that the computer doesn't recognize it. I should have probably moved the camera onto the monitor, but I mean, you found this video probably because you're experiencing the exact same thing, so I'm sure you can relate to what's happening. So here is our USB printed circuit board. Now, one quick way to make sure that these boards are compatible, and if their numbers are not what I just told you that they are on these boards, other boards that are USB interface are also have USB counterparts. SATA counterparts, and the way to tell what they are would be by matching this chip and this chip. The part numbers on them should be the same. And if they're the same, they should be compatible boards. Just hooked it up to the channel number 1. That sound that drive just made, it actually gave us the registry status that it's ready. These two lights indicate that. Now we have to put it in the utility. It actually gives us a complete ID. So we're gonna auto select. This is probably gonna be Shrek LT or Hubble LT. You see how long it takes for this drive to get recognized? It's a Hubble. this is definitely a clear sign of head issue in progress, and most likely we'll be able to speed up this drive right now by clearing out the relo list and putting a restriction on it so that no new entries can be mapped into it. So this may take a little while, so I'll let it run. Eventually what we're looking for is for this drive to pass all of this information into the registry. And once we got that, we can begin the repair work. Sounds like the drive is really struggling right now. This might be one of the worst cases of slow response that I've seen up to date. This is really taking a long time. This should take literally like fraction of a second. That just comes right up and you have access. Let me try something else. Or not. Actually the drive came up as I was grabbing the screwdriver. So let's get in here. Here's what I wanted to show you guys. Go into a catalog of all the modules that are on there, and the one that I'm gonna really pay attention to is the module number 32. That module is responsible for mapping all of these entries for the delayed sectors. And it really is taking forever to read that information. Sounds like the heads are really are on their last breath, but until we clear out that module, it's going to be hard to say what the condition is like, because right now we can't even perform a head test because the head test will fail due to this massive non-responsiveness of the drive. But if it takes this long to read this information, most likely it's due to a head issue rather than a slow response issue that is coming from the drive. Let me get the idea. The drive now lets us in. Looks like head 0 is actually in trouble, so we may have to isolate it for the first part of the imaging. But let's get in. Actually, no, it's the head 3 that is struggling because it's not registering on here. But if we go into sector edit, for example, let me try to read the very first sector. There it is. Right now it's in encrypted form. I'm just gonna go and detect the type of encryption this drive is using. Select it. And now we can see our information is decrypted. And successful. Yay. So right now, what we're gonna do is actually we're gonna set up. We're gonna set up an imaging task for this drive. And once the drive is imaged, we'll begin to copying the data out. So if you guys need this problem solved, feel free to contact us, which you just saw on the screen as basically a solution for hard drives that have been dropped, that are made by Western Digital, that do not give you access to the data, but also do not click. For clicking hard drives, I'll post a link in the description. You guys can see what the process consists of there. Thank you for watching.